What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. Today we are building the ultimate Timmy version of Betor. I'm talking about losing 10 life at a time to put 10 CMC creatures onto the battlefield. It's going to be great, but before we do that, click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You'll get a free $15 whenever you sign up and it helps out the channel. Additionally, you can get 10% off all of your Tolarian library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. Now let's get right into it. Betor has a really cool ability that allows us to put a 1/1 counter on a creature we control equal to the life we gained each turn, and then we get to reanimate a creature equal to the life we lost each turn. So we have this cool life lost, life gained synergy happening. I also already built a budget version of this deck, but I went with the Pinata strategy, where we just try to put as much 1/1 counters on a creature as possible, blow it up, create a lot of tokens. I think there's a lot of room in that build to really take it to the next level. So if we get this video to 500 likes, I'm going to make a third Betor video where we go over, another non-budget Pinata strategy. If the demand's there, I'm willing to make another video. But without further ado, let's talk about this Timmy build. Make no mistake, this is a Timmy deck. We are reanimating massive creatures and smashing face while making them even bigger. But there is a couple different ways to win without ever going to combat in this deck. So make sure you stay to the end of the video to see those ways, because I'm going to put those at the end after we go over all the synergy and cards. Let's start it off by talking about 5 creatures that kind of mimic our commander. Rudolph Duskbringer. This guy's a legendary vampire angel. He says flying, death touch, and lifelink. Whenever you gain life, Rudolph Duskbringer gains indestructible until end of turn. Additionally, at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 in a black or a white. When you do, return target creature with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Again, kind of exactly like our commander, so now we get to reanimate 2 giant creatures each turn as well. Another thing I love about this guy is he has lifelink, so he's just going to help us put more and more counters on him each turn, allowing us to gain more and more life, allowing us to reanimate more creatures. Celestine the Living Saint, kind of the same thing here. She has flying, lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is, you guessed it, the amount of life we gained. Guardian Scarelord doesn't have lifelink, but he does have flying, and whenever this creature attacks, return target non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is this creature's power. So we're going to put 1/1 counters on him. He's only a 3/4, but we can easily make him bigger, and then we're just going to be able to reanimate permanents as well as creatures with this guy, so he's going to fit perfectly in the deck. Carmen is also perfect here. She has flying, and whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, put a 1/1 counter on Carmen and you gain 1 life. She also says whenever Carmen attacks, return up to 1 target permanent card with mana value less than or equal to Carmen's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So now we're just playing creatures that want to get massive, and the bigger they are, the more permanents and creatures we get to reanimate. I'm also a huge fan of the green O here in this deck. It says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card or land card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library. So now we deal damage with this guy, and we just get to grab creatures from our library instead of our graveyard. I'm a fan. You've been waiting long enough. Let's talk about the big bads that we're trying to reanimate here. Colossal Grave Reaver is a new card that I am super excited to run in this deck. It has flying, and whenever this creature enters or attacks, you get to mill 3 cards. And then it says whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put 1 of them onto the battlefield. That's absolutely insane. No once per turn clause, no anything limiting this guy. Once you get a mill effect on the battlefield, we can kind of just put whatever we want in the graveyard and reanimate it. Imagine him with Doom Whisperer on the battlefield. Now we're surveilling exactly what creature we want to reanimate and then reanimating it. It's just not going to be okay. Valgavoth Terror Eater is also pretty insane. We have another flying lifelinker. It also has ward, sacrifice 3 permanents, so good luck with your opponents dealing with that. If a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you get to exile it instead. And then during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, you get to pay life equal to its mana cost rather than paying its mana cost. So not only is this 9/9 lifelinker gaining us 9 life and putting 9 counters on a permanent each turn because of our commander, additionally he synergizes with the life loss portion of the deck. Canopy Gargantuan. This is just a chonky dragon that says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a number of 1/1 counters on each other creature you control equal to that creature's toughness. This is going to make some massive creatures, and he has a lot of synergy in the deck, especially with Agatha Soul Cauldron that we will be running. This guy can cause us to win the game in a lot of scenarios. We're also running Villas here. This guy is absolutely broken in this deck. He says whenever you lose life, you get to draw that many cards. So right out of the gate, that is insane. Additionally, he has an ability that allows us to pay 1 black mana and pay 2 life to give target creature -1/-1 until end of turn. So the fact that he has a way to trigger himself is pretty cool, but honestly, I'm down to just throw Wall of Blood on the battlefield, pay 1 life to draw 1 card. The value is just insane in this deck. Kakusho the Evening Star. When Kakusho the Evening Star dies, each opponent loses 5 life, and you're going to gain life equal to the life lost this way. So that's 15 life out of nowhere, and that means we're putting 15 counters on one of our creatures. Vaultborn Tyrant is one of my pet cards that it's hard to justify running in the deck because of the cost, but whenever we're just reanimating him, it seems kind of good. There's a lot of sack outlets in the deck that care about us sacrificing giant creatures, and this is the perfect fodder. He says whenever Vaultborn Tyrant or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you get to gain 3 life and draw a card. So we get life gain and card advantage. And then it says whenever Vaultborn Tyrant dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So now you can kind of make an army of Vaultborn Tyrants, and you're going to draw increasingly more cards and gain increasingly more life. Massacre Worm. Everybody loves him. He enters the battlefield and gives all of your opponent's creatures -2/-2 until end of turn. He also says whenever a creature an opponent control dies, that player is going to lose 2 life. Notably, this is one of those decks where you can very easily reanimate this guy, sacrifice him, reanimate him again, and really do some busted things. Bane of Progress is a staple that absolutely hoses decks over. This card wins me a lot of games. And he has a simple text. Whenever Bane of Progress enters the battlefield, you just get to destroy all artifacts and enchantments and then put a 1/1 counter on him for each permanent destroyed this way. He's really good to sacrifice and reanimate, and he really hoses over a lot of strategies. Last but not least, we have Doom Whisperer. This guy has a broken ability. He has Flying, Trample, Pay 2 Life, Surveil 2. That's insane because this guy allows us to pay life as many times as we want. So not only is he one of our paying life outlets, he also fills our graveyard as much as we want. Speaking of life loss outlets, we have Wall of Blood. This is my absolutely favorite life loss outlet in the deck, so we're going to spend some time talking about it. As simple text, it says pay 1 life, Wall of Blood gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Now, there's a lot of ways to abuse this in the deck. To name a few, let's talk about the Gitrog Ravenous Ride, Greater Good, and Altar of the Wretched. The Gitrog Ravenous Ride has Trample, Haste, and Saddle 1. Whenever the Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled it this turn. If you do, you get to draw X cards and put up to X tapped lands onto the battlefield from your hand, where X is that creature's power. Absolutely insane. Greater Good, you sacrifice a creature to draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then you discard 3 cards, and then Altar of the Wretched, you're going to draw X cards and then mill X cards, where X is, you guessed it, the creature's power. So with Wall of Blood, we can easily pay something insane like 39 life, and then boom, we're drawing 39 cards and putting a shit ton of lands into play. It's absolutely insane. Another thing I want to talk about is Wall of Blood with Agatha Soul Cauldron. If we're able to exile Wall of Blood from our graveyard, which is not hard to do, we're in a graveyard deck, right? That's going to be super strong with all of our life gain creatures, because now we're able to pay our life total every single turn, connect with a life gain creature, and gain all of that life back. Then we're going to put a number of counters on them equal to the life we gained because of our commander. This gets out of control insanely quick. Now that I'm done gushing about Wall of Blood, we can move on to Blood Celebrant. This guy's simple. We can pay 1 black and 1 life to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. And then we can keep doing that with black mana to pay as much life as we want. Sylvan Library is super solid here as well. It's going to allow you to draw 2 additional cards. You just have to pay 4 life per additional card you draw. So you can pay up to 8 life, and then boom, you're getting added card advantage. And this deck can easily gain that life back. And remember, it's always a choice. Another card that gives us choices is Black Market Connections. We can create a treasure token for 1 life, draw a card for 2 life, or create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter for 3 life. So we can gain up to 6 life a turn with this card, and remember, not hard to gain all of that back. Ripples of Undeath is going to be a solid mill piece. It mills us 3 cards per turn, but if we want one of those cards in our hand, we can pay 3 life and 1 generic mana to put it into our hand. Priest of Fell Rites is sneaky good with this commander. We can pay 3 life to sacrifice Priest of Fell Rites, and then return target creature card from our graveyard to our battlefield. Activate that only as a sorcery. What's really cool about this is it's only a 2 CMC creature. So since we paid 3 life, that's more than 2 CMC, so we can reanimate this every single turn with our commander, and then reanimate bigger things whenever we untap with it. Underrealm Lich, super solid here. I absolutely love this card. If you would draw a card, instead, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. He also has a cool ability to pay 4 life, and he gains indestructible until end of turn. You have to tap him though. So you can pay that more than once, and paying 8 life will reanimate almost everything in the entire deck. Everything except for Valgavoth, right? That guy's 9 mana. He's pretty expensive. Pact Weapon is also sneaky good in this deck. I absolutely love it. It's a 4 CMC artifact equipment that says as long as Pact Weapon is attached to a creature, you don't lose the game for having 0 life. It also has the text, whenever equipped creature attacks, draw a card and reveal it. The creature gets +X until end of turn, and you lose X life, where X is the card's mana value. What this means is we can equip this to any of our life linkers, and it's automatically going to net neutral because we're going to gain the life back, and it's a way to lose solid life. Another thing that's really powerful about this card is its equip cost is discard a card, so we can actually discard the creatures we want to reanimate, and then boom, lose the life to reanimate it. Phyrexian Delver and Reanimate basically have the same text. One says whenever it enters the battlefield, and the other one's a sorcery. It says put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. So whenever you pair this with our commander, you're basically reanimating 2 creatures, and it's pretty powerful. Beladros Witherbloom is going to net us a black and green pest creature token that says whenever this creature dies, you gain 1 life at the beginning of each upkeep, so for a rotation. And then he allows us once per turn to untap all of our lands, so kind of like a Sword of Feast and Famine that, costs 10 life. Tavash Gloom Summoner. This guy's perfect for this deck. He has lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you may pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gained. If you do, create an XX black demon creature token with flying. Notably, always stack this trigger above your commanders, and the synergy is going to work. Also, remember, when we're gaining a ton of life with those life linkers that have Wall of Blood's ability, you can easily create 40/40 demons with this guy. Not an exaggeration. Staff of Completion has a ton of utility for this deck. We can pay 1 life to destroy target permanent you own, so it's kind of like a sack outlet, not useless. Pay 2 life to add 1 mana of any color, pay 3 life to proliferate, pay 4 life to draw a card, and then you can pay 5 generic mana to untap this artifact. All of these abilities are super useful in the deck, and the life loss is welcomed here. Willow Dusk Essence Reaver is absolutely insane in this deck. She has an ability to pay 1 and tap her, choose another target creature you control, put a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the amount of life you gain this turn or the amount of life you lost this turn, whichever is greater. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, the reason I like this here is because we can pay a ton of life with Wall of Blood, put all of those 1/1 counters on our commander, and instantly kill someone with commander damage. That's just going to be insanely broken. We're also on Lathiel. I like this because it's kind of a 1-for-1 printing of our commander's ability. She has lifelink, and at the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, distribute up to that many 1/1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So you can spread the counters out, but still, she's going to put a lot of power on a lot of our creatures. The next thing we need to do is fill that graveyard. But first, I want to talk about some discard outlets, because honestly, I've been favoring just getting big creatures out of my hand lately with discard outlets instead of just mass mill, so I did include some of those. The Great Door is one of my favorite. You get to draw a card and discard a card, and then late game you can transform it into a land that taps equal to the amount of permanent cards in your graveyard. So it's kind of insane ramp, and in the early game, gets those big creatures out of your hand. Mindless Automaton does something very good for this commander. It enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it, and then says you can pay 1, discard a card, and put a 1/1 counter on Mindless Automaton. Additionally, you can remove 2 1/1 counters from Mindless Automaton to draw a card. Collector's Vault, super simple. Pay 2, you get to draw a card, then discard a card, and create a treasure token. So it kind of stores your ramp, but at its face, it's kind of just pay 1, draw a card, discard a card. The treasure token kind of cancels that out. Bramble Familiar, early game, this is a mana dork. It's also a discard outlet. We get to pay 1 and a green to discard a card and return it to our hand. That's important because it has a broken adventure that says mill 7 cards, then put a creature or enchantment or land card from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. So perfect all around. Burrogoyf is one of those amazing creatures in this deck. Not only does it have Death Touch and Lifelink, it says Burrogoyf's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that +1. Additionally, whenever Burrogoyf deals combat damage to a player, you mill that many cards. If you do, you may put a creature card from among them into your hand. So not only do we get card selection, we get mill. Additionally, we can stack a bunch of 1/1 counters on this guy to mill a ton of cards. Rampant Fraugantua does something very similar. This guy has trample and he gets +10/+10 if a player has lost the game. Whenever Rampant Fraugantua deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards, put any number of land cards milled this way onto the battlefield tapped. Shigeki is one of my favorite value engines that does everything in one card. Not only does this guy mill you, not only does he return lands to the battlefield, he also is able to return anything from your graveyard to your hand with his channel ability. 6 and Life from the Loam has that broken synergy that allows us to turn our graveyard essentially into our hand, right? 6 says whenever we attack, we mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. He also says, as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have Retrace. Retrace allows you to discard a land card and cast a permanent spell from your graveyard. Life from the Loam, pretty solid here. It just is 2 mana, return up to 3 land cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then it has a Dredge ability. So whenever we draw a card, we can actually just put this into our hand. These two together, again, just generate a broken synergy. Altar of Dementia, you sacrifice a creature and mill cards equal to its power. Out of the Tombs has a really cool ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs, then mill cards equal to the amount of Eon counters on it. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can't, you lose the game. This is going to be one of the ways we win the game without ever going to combat, but we'll talk about that later. Moving on to just solid cards that give us solid value, we have Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. This says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. That's going to be us 9 times out of 10 unless we've made a massive creature already with our 1/1 counters. She also taps for mana equal to the greatest power among creatures we control. So that's insane. It's going to allow us to hardcast a lot of these bombs. Kami of Whispered Hope is pretty similar here. If 1 or more counters would be put on a permanent you control, put that many +1 counters on it instead. So a little bit more counters, and then Kami of Whispered Hope adds X mana of any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is Kami of Whispered Hope's power. So we just want to put as many 1/1 counters on Kami of Whispered Hope as possible. Tyrant Guard is going to be amazing protection because we can sacrifice Tyrant Guard, and creatures you control with counters on them are going to gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. What I like about Tyrant Guard here is we can keep reanimating him, right? Since it's on a creature, this is very reusable in the deck. Cutsil Malamute Exemplar is actually kind of very important in this deck. Not only is it card advantage because whenever 1 or more creatures you control with power greater than its base power deals combat damage to a player, you get a draw card. Additionally, she says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. This is super important because whenever we're paying something like 39 life at a time, going down to 1 life, we really don't want our opponents to be able to interact with us during that time. We need our lifelink creatures to connect. So to ensure that happens, Cutsil's perfect here. Children of Corliss, also super solid here. We can sacrifice them to gain life equal to the amount of life we've lost this turn. So again, paying a ton of life with Wall of Blood, sacrificing them, gaining 39 life, and then putting 39 counters on one of our creatures. Broken stuff. Now let's talk about the non-combat ways we can win the game. I want to talk about Agatha's Soul Cauldron and Walking Ballista. Let's not forget that we're putting a lot of 1/1 counters on our creatures in a plethora of different ways. Now, if every single creature with a 1/1 counter on it has Walking Ballista's ability, the ability to remove a 1/1 counter from it to deal 1 damage to any target, not only can we get rid of all of our opponent's creatures, we can probably get rid of all of our opponent's life totals as well. The last one is Out of the Tombs, Kakusho the Evening Star, and the Great Henge. What's going to happen is when we have absolutely 0 cards in our library, we can just keep reanimating the same creature over and over again with Out of the Tombs and the Great Henge. What's going to happen is, let's say we draw a card. We animate Kakusho the Evening Star. Kakusho the Evening Star enters the battlefield, triggers our Great Henge card draw effect, and in response, we sacrifice Kakusho the Evening Star and then reanimate them again with the reanimation trigger from Out of the Tombs. This is going to kill all of our opponents with its life drain effect. That's going to do it for today's video. If you guys made it this long, let me know. I'm trying something different. I'm reading out more cards. I'm trying to explain more in the deck tech. If you guys appreciate that, really let me know. I really need some feedback. With that being said, let's shout out those patrons: Irrelevant, Chicken Salad, Praetor, Excessum, and The Professional Heal. You guys are amazing. I hope this helped you guys in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.